I got broads in Atlanta, just to put me in the family, credit cards and scammers.
This video is going to be all about camera basics. Obviously I can't fit in every single detail to do with the camera. Well, I mean I could, but we would be here for ages. I've just kind of picked the main things I think you need to learn if you're going to be shooting in manual. Obviously you can shoot in auto, I do it a lot of the time, but it's really important for you to know the main elements of shooting in manual mode. So if you are put in a situation when auto is just not really working, then at least you know exactly what you need to do. I took some self-portraits basically at the beginning of the week. I posted them on my Instagram. I was originally going to show you how I did them, and I will explain that, but I think I'm going to save that for a different video. So in this one I decided to use my dog as the subject, as I thought people would probably enjoy that a bit more. But she was a slightly difficult model and she wouldn't really sit in place, or she would just not look at the camera. So I did try, but I'm going to try my best to explain all the different settings and the different components that are really important when shooting in manual mode. So there are three main things that you need to know when using a camera, whether it's for photography or for video. You need to know about ISO, aperture, and shutter speed. These are the three main components and they all complement each other, so when you change one you need to change the other two as well. So what I'll start with is ISO. ISO, you usually have an ISO button on your camera. If not, it's in your settings. Okay, so what is ISO? What does it mean? ISO refers to how sensitive your camera's sensor is to light. The more sensitive your camera is to light, the higher the ISO number is going to be. The more possible it is for you to be able to shoot in low light situations. The only thing with increasing the ISO, it means it lowers the quality of the photo, because obviously you're adding more fake light and it's manipulating your photograph or video. Because everything was bumped up so high, the photo just looks awful and it's really grainy and it's just not come out well. So that's why you need to keep the ISO low and the aperture wider. The ISO is fake light. It's gonna distort and make the photo look crap. This is the same thing. This one's slightly better. But even then you can zoom in and see like how grainy it is. The lower the number is, the less sensitive the photograph is to light. The higher the number is, the more sensitive the photograph is to light. Obviously there is the option to hit auto ISO on a camera. I tend to do this anyway because I don't really trust my eye. Obviously you're going to be in situations where auto is just not going to work and you will have to do it manually. The next thing is aperture, which usually shows on a camera as like f.1.4 or f1.8 or whatever it is. There are hundreds and hundreds of lenses out there that have different f-stops, which are all to do with aperture. Aperture is the amount of light you let in through the whole of your lens. Aperture is usually compared to the pupils in your eyes. They open and close depending on how much light we let in. When our eyes need more light, the pupil opens up and creates a bigger opening to let more light in. When there's too much light, the pupil gets smaller and creates smaller opening to let in less light. Aperture is the exact same thing. When you look at a lens, you'll see that whenever the aperture is much more compact, it's a small pinhole gap in the lens, whereas when you open it, obviously there's a bigger gap. Aperture is measured in the size of the whole opening in the lens. It's measured in f-stops, so you'll usually see on different types of lenses different f-stop numbers. This is to do with what is basically going on in the background, whether your background's going to be blurry or whether everything's going to be in focus and crisp and clear. So if you want your subject to basically be the only thing that is in focus and everything to be blurry around it, then you would keep your aperture at a lower f point. If you want everything to be in focus, usually probably like in landscapes or maybe like a large crowd of people where you want everybody to be the same, then you would increase the aperture. So because the aperture is so low here, you can see the background all around her is like really blurry. and you can, like, it's not in focus at all, whereas she's like a lot more in focus, specifically her nose apparently. So yeah, so all around her it's pretty grainy and blurry, but she's the thing we're focusing on. That's why we put such a low aperture. The only thing is, when you increase the aperture, you are now going to have to increase the shutter speed, which brings us on to the third point, shutter speed. Shutter speed is pretty self-explanatory. It's how fast your camera takes the photo. If you are shooting something which is moving, which is what I was trying to do with Edna, you're going to get a lot of motion blur, which is that just horrible look on a photo where, you know, if someone's moving slightly or whatever, it's just kind of blurry. So when you take a picture and you hear that click, that's the sound of your shutter opening and closing. Shutter speed is about time and the amount of time it takes for light to enter into your camera. The bigger the number, the faster the shutter speed, the less light enters your camera, i.e. a darker image. The smaller the number, the slower the shutter speed, the more light enters your camera, i.e. a brighter image. And I mean, yeah. This was at a really slow shutter speed and a really low aperture. This is what I mean about how the three of them complement each other. So because the shutter speed was so slow and there was so much light coming into the camera, it just has done this, where it's basically just a white screen. Whereas because if the shutter speed was slow and I brought up the aperture a lot more, it would have evened out and, you know, you would have been able to see Edna. This one, again, this is what I mean about with shutter speed, and if the object or whatever is in your photo has motion. She was moving around quite a lot and I was also moving. You can see the ISO is fine. The aperture is pretty low again, and also, you know, it's it's a sixth of a second. So I mean, it's very, very slow shutter. So even if she'd done the slightest like wiggle over her ear, it would have done it would have messed up really. Say you're taking a photo of a waterfall. If you lower the shutter speed and make it slower, then the water is all basically going to blend into one and blur, and you're going to get motion blur. Whereas if you increase the shutter speed and make it faster, then you're going to be able to capture everything in focus and clear, closely matching the speed of the water in the waterfall. Obviously, there is a lot more settings and there's a lot more technical stuff that, you know, you will need to know down the line, but those are the main things that once you get the hang of and practice, it's going to be so much easier to like shoot basically in manual when you know how these things work. So I hope you enjoyed that. That was a bit more quick fire than the last video was, but I'm trying to speed these up a little bit, as I know that, you know, dragging things out for a long time, people don't really want to watch like 10-15 minute videos of just someone rambling on. I want to thank everybody for all the support that you showed on the last video. It took me so long to make, and I'm really trying to develop my skills with like animating and drawing and just spending a lot more time, and it's really good for me to be making these videos and actually forcing myself to make something to a schedule, because I'm quite disorganized for the most part. Also, I want to thank everybody who actually tried out the self-portrait stuff. So, as I said last video, I am still going to carry on giving these photo challenges in these videos. Feel free to do them, feel free to not. I completely understand if you don't want to do them. So this week's challenge is going to be shadow play. Sounds kind of weird. If you saw my self-portraits that I posted on Instagram, I was messing around with light and shadows, which were like blocking off some of my face. I think shadow and light is a really fun way to make a photo look a lot more artsy-fartsy than just having like someone stood in front of a window with like the light fully on their face. Experiment with this. It can be a self-portrait, it can be of someone you're in isolation with, it can be of an object, it can be of an animal if you want. Alright, well, I think that's it from me again. Please subscribe down below if you want to see more videos, if you feel like it. I will see you for the next video.
I got